brought out by the other LPL teams to so much success. You can get more counter picks when you're red side. It all depends on how many power picks you're willing to ban and also give over.
Now we also have to see if RNG are going to ban away the Janna here, because Fnatic are banning Lulu to try and say, ban Janna so we can first pick Tristana or Sejuani. RNG might have something else cooked up here and willing to trade the Janna for some of the power picks.
The Sejuani is also still a power pick on this patch. The one game RNG lost was when they did give up Sejuani over to G2 in the group stage. So this last ban has a lot of importance. Janna's still on the table. If they do not ban Janna, it's almost certainly getting first pick by Fnatic.
That means then RNG suddenly get a chance to lock in things like Tristana for themselves. There's still a Rek'Sai open. A key pick for Broxah, but also one of the best champions for MLXG.
I feel like this is probably Sejuani Tristana, but we don't know exactly what RNG has in store. We've seen Twitch games, we've seen Vayne games, we've seen COG games from him, but Trist has been supreme in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, they have to take Tristana. I think Sejuani is a smart choice as well, but that's okay for Fnatic to still then potentially take Rek'Sai for Broxah. And in the bottom lane, European AD carries like to take Sivir against this Tristana here, because again, you can just spell shield the bomb.
Boom, and I think that's exactly what Fnatic want to do in this situation. They were victorious on Sivir once before, plus they have the primo Ardent Sensor user for that mid-game power spike that they want to hit against this RNG team.
Also why we get the Gragas here for Broxah. Even though he's not a great engaged jungler, the fact he's on now a scaling champion, they already have Reckless as a late game win condition. Alright, that's why RNG gave away the Janna. That's why RNG picked the red side, as we talked about, the chance of last picking for support.
And the bot lane counter pick, and they don't even have to do it in the second phase, so it means they're getting the bottom lane counter pick while still being able to save both of their solo lanes until after ban phase 2. With that being said, we haven't seen Soraka yet. If it was so blatantly a counter pick to the Janna, I think we would have seen a lot more of it.
Is this a big signal that RNG are fans of this Ardent Sensor meta? We'll find out as the series plays out, of course.
Yeah.
Shen has been banned away, and it's just interesting because backstage we were talking about what would Ming do if those primo supports of Janna and Lulu were off the table, and obviously Soraka's a gigantic answer.
Yeah, and there's still things like Karma and Taric if he wants other Ardent Sensor choices. I think Soraka is so interesting as a lane counter because, again, Janna doesn't really punish you in the laning phase, but I think Fnatic are going to be okay just farming in this bottom lane and not necessarily looking to actually try and kill this Soraka, unless we get a Broxah roaming down.
All right, gentlemen, we're entering into phase 2 now. Double bans for RNG on the table, Cassiopeia and Gnar. In terms of those top lane tanks and solo laners, where are we starting to think about?
Well, normally RNG wants led me on some sort of tank where he can be really strong in team fights. Cho'Gath or Maokai are the ones we're looking at. I prefer him on Maokai just because he adds engaged in for his team, but they already have Sejuani there, so they could still go for Cho'Gath.
Yeah, it's based on the Gnar ban. I feel like it telegraphs that Cho'Gath pick, especially with Shen being off the table.
Give me Trundle then for Source if he wants to actually try and take a carry. And yes, Caps actually wants to play Taliyah. When he played this champion in the EU LCS, he was so good on it. And then after 2 weeks, he was like, I never want to play this again. Once he played it, ever since, in play-ins, he took it a single time. Not doing Worlds just group stages just yet. I'm so happy to see him back on this champion because his job is to push out the mid lane and have the control so he can actually start roaming to either the bot lane or the top lane. That's what Taliyah brings.
Hey, that's something that we've talked a lot about. Xiaohu's strengths, controlling the mid lane, impacting the side lanes. He's going to reply with the Rise. I touched on this yesterday. 9 wins and I believe 18 losses at Worlds 2017. Not many teams have been able to pull this one off, Jack.
Yeah, it had some success in the play-in stage. It had some success when Faker's been playing it. Outside of that, it hasn't really found that much, but that isn't to say that it doesn't have strong points in the game. The mid game can still be an incredibly strong point in the match for Rise, but if he's up against double tank matchups in the super late game and the Trundle gets to ult the Stoneplate, Cho'Gath, and Sejuani, the Rise will fall off substantially. So Fnatic has the superior scaling come the super late game.
They should be able to kill the front line first. One thing we did see Faker and Blank do yesterday with the Rise was go mid lane early. Try and play around the instant snare you have. That's why there's a cleanse on the side of Caps at the moment. You can pop that cleanse and re-gank it if you are RNG, and you can try and get Xiaohu ahead.
And I think it's really important to emphasize that both teams, in a sense, opted into these picks. RNG had side selection. They could have chosen the blue side. That probably would have drawn a Janna ban from Fnatic, and then they could have gone with the first pick of their choosing. But they wanted to play Soraka into Janna here. Janna, probably the most successful support pick we've seen at the World Championship. So it's a bold move right off the bat for RNG.
76 win percentage on that Janna across Worlds 2017. Xiaohu has got one game of Rise under his belt already, and he picked up a victory with it. Will he start this best of 5 with another win? Guys, you can see the team compositions on your screens. Jump onto Twitter and vote if you think the results will be different to Pick'em's. 73% of the planet Pick'em selected RNG. We'll find out if they can make their run, if they can set up that rematch with SKT in the semifinals, because they know who they are waiting to face. Right, Deficio, as we jump into game, we'll start looking at these lane setups here. There's a lot of power on both sides to make plays happen in the early game. Who's going to be the first to pull that trigger? Because there's a lot of options, right?
I mean, we're always looking at the junglers then, because just pure 1v1 and 2v2, no one should get a huge advantage against each other. MLXG, though, is not playing like the jungler we saw in the LPL, where he was so active early on, like level 2 ganks, level 3 ganks, creative pathing here. Instead, he's actually been much more relaxed in the way he's playing, and much more about vision from his side.
Yeah, he hasn't, in my opinion, actually had very good early games in the group stage. He had first blood 70% of the time he would secure it for RNG during the summer split as well as playoffs, and he's gotten 1 first blood so far here at the World Championship, and that does speak to RNG's strengths in other facets of the game that they don't need to jump ahead early. But it is interesting how he hasn't been able to get first blood despite spending so much time near his lanes trying to add pressure.
And it's the really funny thing about this RNG lineup, because they went away from the very aggressive early game style we've seen so often. We get the numbers on your screen here. During the summer split, MLXG, able to get more kills and assists in the early game, was part of a lot of first bloods for his team. Not been the case as you highlighted, Jack.
And what I love about watching MLXG, and we've been saying this throughout the tournament, is he feels like it's hard random what he does in the game. Will he start red? Will he start blue? Will he do a level 2 gank? Will he farm until 6? And he switches it up all the time, but for whatever reason at this World Championship, he hasn't jumped on that right pattern in the early game.
All right, no minions lost here for Fnatic. That is important in terms of the experience when you leash for your jungler. Ming on his first Soraka all year long. In the laning phase, Janna can't really touch her. You can't kill the Soraka, and it's just this farm game where the Tristana and Soraka will try and push you in.
Going to be a little bit non-interactive in the bigger picture. Some poke going down there from Ming as he's throwing out those star calls. And I tell you what, Guangzhou's excited with every spell cast. So we'll see whether or not the fan favorites will be able to step ahead. Going to spot up MLXG in his early pathing here, Jack.
Yeah, and when we talk about the way this matchup plays out as well, even though when you look at these teams, you see, oh man, Reckless versus Uzi, those bottom lane hyper carries doing so much of the damage. The lead in the bottom lane will come from the rest of the map. It will come from who has control in mid lane, and Fnatic is making that roam really early, looking to burn flash.
Well, a lot of control in the mid lane already. Flash away from the seismic shove. But that's at least the summoner spell down for nothing on the side of Fnatic.
And this is another change for Fnatic. After they went 0-3 in the first week, they said, okay, Source is constantly just on a tank where he's losing his lane. They changed it up. They actually allowed Source to get a few counter picks in the top lane, and it allows Source also to have a bit more freedom. And we know he's also this kind of hard random player where all of a sudden he's in the mid lane or in the bot lane trying to make a play like we just saw here.
Yeah, he shoved in the top lane, and Deficio as well. When we were talking about how would Fnatic win this game, a lot of it is about getting caps rolling. So many people see this as Reckless's team, but one of the biggest indicators between victory and defeat for Fnatic is how Caps performs, and that is largely attributed to the attention that the team gives for him. You can see in that week 2 turnaround how much better his numbers were, specifically his damage percentage. In a tournament where other teams are winning without their mid laners having a high damage percentage, Fnatic needs that out of Caps to truly come together as a team.
And it also comes down to the picks he's getting. When he picks a Syndra, he can actually do really well in the laning phase. He can push and he can roam. Now on Talia, he's going to be able to do the exact same thing. This is why I've wanted Caps to play this champion again, because it fits Fnatic's playstyle. Push out mid and apply pressure to either top or bot lane.
Let's see whether or not Fnatic can make that advantage. They're falling slightly behind the gold game. Couple of CS advantage for Xiaohu and Uzi as it stands. Not really much to speak of. But of course, now that Xiaohu is flashless in the middle lane, going to give some more options to Fnatic, whether or not they want to set up any more ganks or whether or not Caps continues to shove that lane forwards.
Yeah, and with the Gragas pick, which Broxa has played twice in the play-in stage and not at all in the group stage, when the mid laner is flashless, you go mid. If Xiaohu can ever leave his turret by too much, Broxa should gank that lane. But that's where MLXG is right now, kind of prepping for that counter gank. And also, Caps doesn't necessarily have the wave in the right spot.
Oh, but it is pushing though.
Push. And now it can be in the right spot if Caps holds.
Yeah. Patience from Fnatic here. Xiaohu as well playing it very smart. He knows his jungler is on the top side, so that's where he's hovering towards in case a gank happens. Now Source needs to be careful up in the top lane.
Gonna find MLXG face first. Respect Flash before any stun can come down.
I do find it interesting as well how RNG has played towards topside in the early game with where Xiaohu is cheating and where MLXG is pathing, because that technically gives away bot side control against this Fnatic team. And Fnatic will have a window where they would theoretically be able to punish this RNG bottom lane. When Caps hits level 6, when Soaz has teleport, since Broxa has ward control, they can maybe make something happen bottom.
He needs to go instantly. He's on a ward right now.
A little early.
No delay just yet. Broxa's still got flash available if he decides to. Howling Gale catches out Ming. He's already flashed. There's the body slam. Ricochet continues to fire down in the boomerang blade. First blood to Reckless.
It is so easy to gank a Soraka in the bottom lane, and Fnatic, they take full advantage of it. Right here, we get to see this RNG team who's done this a few times in groups where when they have a passive bot lane, they don't go down to Uzi early. They just kind of wait for level 6 on their mid laner, and then they try and make a play here. Because, as you highlighted, Jad, MLXG spent his time on top side. Bot lane got punished.
Yeah, and that's a smart play from Fnatic. I was actually expecting them to wait until Caps was level 6, but because this Soraka pick is so defenseless when pushed up, you saw how early Ming used that heal that you just mentioned, Deficio. Even the flash away thanks to Brox's patient, he still has flash on the Gragas if he wants to make the repeat journey.
Now Caps is level 6, so they can do the exact same thing again. Good use of the blast cone. The ward doesn't even matter because Uzi and Ming are pushed so far up in the lane, and it's a very easy kill for Fnatic.
A lot of credit to Jez's as well. That Howling Gale setting up the body slam and easily picked up by Fnatic.
Yeah, and a minor criticism there for Uzi. He was too close to Ming. He wanted to block the body slam, but the hitbox was a little bit too big. Still got the stun onto him. If Uzi positioned even further up, knowing he has the barrier flash and rocket jump, there is a chance he could have kept Ming alive. He does not, and that's another reason First Blood goes to Fnatic.
So Broxa on a scaling jungler, having 2 successful ganks already. Flash in the mid, secured by Xiaohu. It's still on cooldown. Will be up and available shortly. MLXG, however, he's also made 1 gank to the top lane. We'll see whether or not there's any repeat setup. But for Fnatic, this is a dream start to the opening game of the series.
Especially when you play against a team like RNG, who's been famous for their late game team fighting during this tournament here. It's been very impressive to watch them be slightly down or just even in the early game, and then they walk into the first team fight in the mid to late game and they just destroy the enemy team. They're looking to try and do the same here, but they need to make sure that Reckless does not get too fed. MLXG, he's back in the top lane.
This is such a difficult gank. Yes, the guy is flashless, but it is a Trundle who can ultimate. They're going for it anyway.
Okay, Subjugate and the heal is going to be available for Soaz. Starts to channel it now. The heal's coming in. Soaz down to Piero.
Already got him.
There's the stun, and MLXG gets the last hit.
Nice return gank here, but meanwhile in the bottom lane, there's no flash for Ming. He's under his own turret, placing that control ward. Caps is here, Brox is here as well.
All right, Ming has to be the target.
No rocket
wish
jump either.
available, no flash available. Locked between a turret and a hard place. Weaver's wall hasn't been cancelled yet by Caps as Uzi continues to hammer down. Reckless gets his second kill of the fight, and that's a knock-up onto Broxer. Let me completed the teleport. Uzi's looking for at least some sort of reply, but cannot find it.
Very nice execution here from Fnatic. They expected a TP to come in, but they knew the Soraka would die so fast. So they completely ignored Uzi on the side and just walled in Ming here and took him down.
For Ming, there was really nothing he could do in that situation. Even with the teleport completing, it's just a clean gank from Fnatic. But the other clean gank was up top here. And note, the only way you get the double detonate on the Sejuani is if you hit him without your ultimate, break the ice first, then ult, break the ice again. That's how they were able to do enough damage to burn through the Trundle ultimate.
Now, not only do they get the kill here in the bot lane, they actually get the TP as well. That's a big cooldown for Fnatic because they can return to bot lane with the TP from Soaz. And as we just see Ming, not really a whole lot he can do in this situation, and no chance of a kill going the other way.
Well, very good play from Fnatic. They take the early lead of 600 gold. And one of the big discussions was that mid lane impact, right? The ability to roam, the ability to play around. And Caps already, with the help of Broxa, getting Reckless ahead. Sorry, he's 2-0. He's got those Berserker's Greaves, and can start to take over that lane.
And it shows that Fnatic have been spending the week very smart and actually figuring out, okay, which champions can we use to try and further snowball our bot lane against Uzi and Ming. There are other champions that Caps can pick. I'm just going to bring up the Aurelion Soul. It's an old stable from him that can do the same thing as a Talia. So the fact they showed this already in game 1 does tell me at least we're going in that direction for the series.
Well, let's see whether or not Fnatic can go into the mid game with a large enough lead and try to out-team fight one of the most impressive team fighting teams that we've seen in World 2017. RNG, Jet, they moved a little bit away from their style we saw from LPL, but this might be one of the best looking group stage performances of an LPL team that we've seen in quite a while.
Exactly, 5-1, beating Samsung twice, only dropping a game to G2. And they've done it with team fighting. Even though the perception is that they hard camp bottom lane, oftentimes Uzi's getting fed through team fights. Now they're attacking mid.
All right, there's a little bit of a skirmish yet. Glacial Prison's available for MLXG. Root Prison comes down from Xiaohu.
Oh.
And it's just to forward step that seismic
Have the TP advantage.
coming down from Soaz. Remember, Let Me cannot join this fight. The Glacial Prison is already thrown down. Flash from Xiaohu has been used. MLXG does not have one, but there's no follow-up from Fnatic, but Xiaohu's summoner spells used.
And they also roam Jez's up, which is giving RNG time in this bottom lane. So even though Reckless has 2 kills, if that first turret were to go over entirely to Uzi, they'd get the gold, but they don't get enough time. The collapse is coming down. They still don't have bot side control, and Uzi and Ming have to back up.
And I love that control here from RNG in the mid lane. They never went for the all-in. They never chased into the actual jungle. They knew there's a chance of a TP. Be ready to step away. Yes, they lose a flash and a heal, but this doesn't matter. You're now winning top, and you're getting damage bot lane.
It's lane pressure has been the name of the early games for RNG. They have been an objective-focused team that is great at pulling the trigger in mid-game team fights. So yes, Fnatic did pull off some quality games in the bottom lane. That will be good later, but that is now 2 side lanes under immense pressure where RNG is getting turret damage.
And now you can use your Rise ulti as well aggressively here if Xiaohu decides to go down and secure this bot lane tower. For now, he steps back towards the mid lane. They know if Uzi and Ming are left in 2v2, they will get into this turret here and take it down, as long as there's no jungler around to actually kill them.
Just like that, RNG regain control of the game. They've got map control in the top and bottom lane. They've got a gold lead. Playing for the objectives is working into RNG's favor here.
And it's been some poor decisions around the top lane here from Fnatic side. The very first gank MLXG pulls off, they knew he was on the top side because Xiaohu was literally hovering towards top side in his lane when he almost got ganked. That cost a flash from Source. He was on his way down to ward, and then he had to flash away. So he gets return ganked and dies, and now this TP was wasted as well. Cost him a top lane first tower.
And I think the teleport is so critical when we're thinking about how this map will play out. Top lane is already dead. The TP advantage can potentially counter what Fnatic want to do right here, but if they go right now, it would be relatively difficult to match this.
A lot of really good defensive wards from RNG though on the bottom side to see if any roam is happening. They even have a ward here just near the Raptor camp in case that is the route Caps is taking. So they're trying to make sure they can spot Caps before he gets too close to actually gank them, and they can then back away to the turret.
It allows RNG to play very safe as we've crested 12 minutes. Tia as well as that Catalyst picked up for Xiaohu, and these item spikes starting to come in. Ardent Sense already picked up in an early execution.
Yeah.
Is falling there for Reckless.
They just hit the items they need to win the lane, and it's about whether or not they could make it back to the lane before the turret goes down. They did actually do that, which probably gives them total control in that bottom lane. Really huge for Fnatic if they can get Reckless side lane priority over Uzi. Uzi and Ming actually didn't recall. I thought they'd recall right then. That means they will not have sensor for this spike.
And we also have these very smart control wards now from Fnatic's side, actually in the river. We just saw Caps sit on the ward here, so he's close enough to go to the bottom lane unnoticed, and he can try and surprise Royal Never Give Up's bottom lane.
Yeah, and again, a little bit odd from RNG playing so heavily around the top side when their bottom side is in dire need. They steal the blue buff away from Talia, but at what cost? How are they going to defend this bottom lane?
It doesn't look like they can. Jats, Uzi, and Ming gonna get cut off. Caps can come in from behind with that Weaver's wall. Gonna step onto a control ward very shortly. Instead, Fnatic are focusing the tower.
Love where Caps was standing. He was not spotted there by that controller because he never crested the side. That one sees him, but the turret is really difficult to defend.
And they're calling actually now
Have a
Xiaohu
ward.
and MLXG. They're
They can
both on the way.
teleport Cho'Gath in if they want to go.
Cho'Gath also has Righteous Glory. He's pushing the top lane. RNG concede the tower. It's an even gold game, and Let Me continues to push.
We had all of Fnatic moving towards that bottom side. Source actually left the top lane to just start walking down in case a fight broke out. So he could be there without his own TP. He will return, catch the wave here. But obviously he's not able to take over this side lane just yet. He needs at least 1.5 items on this Trundle. Because Let Me is just sitting with a ton of armor. Let's see what happens bot lane.
Oh, Reckless with a cheeky recall. Spell Shield has already been used. Glacial Prison's available. Ground Warp's coming down. Jesus tries to reset the fight with Monsoon. Flashes blown. Reckless and Jesus get away.
You know what I hate? When people randomly recall out in the middle of the map. I'm like, come on. Just step a little bit further away. You don't have to recall right there. Play it safe. It just cost him both summoners from him and his support.
The risk that they're running if they take more time to recall, however, though, is knowing that Ming just went back for the Ardent Sensor, is that the turret will go down and they want it to be back for the defense. So it cost them right there with the summer spells, and now they're going for Uzi.
All right, there's a flash and a rocket jump available. Uzi's not going to be able to do a thing. He just gets Goomba stomped by Caps and Broxah.
I mean, who needs a bot lane? It's just Broxah and Caps alone here going down to kill the AD carry. Uzi not able to use his summoners to stay alive, and suddenly it's another kill over for Fnatic.
Yeah, and this game, it's been Fnatic playing around bottom side, not RNG playing around bottom side. RNG is split towards top side. Now they're trying to transition bottom. Broxah going in, MLXG and Xiaohu right there.
All right, Xiaohu sidesteps the body slam. That keeps him alive long enough to run away. Flash is back available for him. And Fnatic with the support, they now turn their attention to the middle lane. Okay, bottom outer is still alive in favor of Fnatic. Xiaohu playing very far forward, realizing the support from MLXG from behind him, and Ming was running down mid lane as well.
We actually get Uzi and Ming swapping to top side right now. They're gonna let me kill the tower. See what happens here. So Uzi still staying in lane, and suddenly Broxah and Caps are around.
He'd already rocket jumped over the turret. Wasn't close enough to the wall to get a reliable flash. Opts to save his summoners, but definitely cut out of position right there. Uzi knows there's not much he could have done.
So as we jump out of the replay, RNG secure the first dragon of the game. It is the Ocean. A little over 16 minutes, and we're now moving into this mid-game rotation phase, and both teams making it fairly clear, rather Fnatic making it fairly clear the bottom lane focus for them. They've got that Essence Reaver for Reckless, a number of repeat ganks, and Broxah, his jungle proximity, significantly higher than his opposing number. You know, RNG 10% difference in the amount of time that Broxah spent in that lane.
Yeah, and that's what Fnatic gains from that. RNG gains strength in the Cho'Gath at this point in the game. We just saw Soaz ticking level 11 when Let Me was already level 12. He's a level and a half ahead of the Trundle in experience. He's also gotten turret gold the first time, and will most likely get solo turret gold on the second one. So there will be a point in the game here where Let Me has the Bramble Vest, the Righteous Glory, probably even another tank item, and Reckless is not going to be hitting that 400 CS or so Sivir where he starts doing relevant damage. So RNG is actually trading frontline power and also the ability to withstand the split push for much longer for reliability of power on Uzi, which is a really risky trade-off to make, but Fnatic has played this game well. RNG, I feel like, has at least been conscious in what they're doing. They've been punished by it, but Let Me is reaping the rewards.
I mean, they definitely tried to make sure that Let Me wasn't just losing from the get-go, but the fact now that we have a Ravenous Hydra on Source simply tells me that he's so committed to split push that if RNG, once Baron actually spawns, wants to start a team fight, it's going to be in their favor. They can walk towards the Baron with the Cho'Gath, start it up, threaten the Baron with the Feast, and Source will have to come in and join, and he's very squishy at this point here. We see a lot of Trundles go Titanic Hydra, so a little bit more powerful if there is a fight happening. Now he's very squishy and relies purely on his ulti.
Now we'll see whether or not he can find the right target. MLXG and Let Me two juicy targets to subjugate. We're getting to 20 minutes. First item spikes picked up, starting to work towards that second item, and both teams have kind of traded buffs fairly often throughout the series of this game as the control is so clearly defined. You know, RNG controlling top, Fnatic controlling bottom, for example, and you can see Reckless and Jazz is pushing that top tower.
Yeah, and at the current moment, the game is very close. So there was the expectation that Fnatic, who started the group stage 2 and 4, wouldn't be able to hang with RNG, who went 5 and 1. They are definitely hanging in this early game. Yes, they did get the Janna, but that's something that RNG willingly gave over to them. It's not like Fnatic did anything super crazy in order to orchestrate this pick, and they're playing to their win conditions very well through the first 18 and a half minutes.
That was going to go down here, gentlemen. A couple more autos from Reckless, uncontested. I can see MLXG moving up, but Caps has Weaver's Wall available, so there's an option for a counter gank if Fnatic wants it.
And Fnatic have the same setup where Source, after pushing his bot lane past the river, he leaves and he goes towards mid lane. it's allowing Caps then to actually go towards top side, while Source can hold the mid lane so they don't lose any damage on that turret. And Fnatic are always ready for RNG collapsing on the Reckless Jess's lane with multiple members around.
There's Herald. This is a big push. RNG's not in position. Uzi is slow on the rotation from top lane.
All right, MLXG's waiting in the wings. He come over the wall from the chicken camp, throws out that Glacial Blitz and catches only Broxah, but the tower has already fallen. So Fnatic get the objective, and they try to get away.
Good positioning right there from Broxah as the big tank in the front. He knows, okay, MLXG can come from the flank and try and ult towards us. And when you hit the Gragas, you don't really want to go all in on that one.
Let's talk a little bit about that itemization, because I really like that Executioner's calling. Picked up very early from Rek into the Soraka. Good itemization. We've talked a lot about bad itemization during the group stage. And of course, this Ardent Sensor, both online, both this mid-game power spike for Uzi and Reckless.
And Uzi's also going to have to pick up healing reduction before the late game team fights to prevent Soaz from just ulting a Cho'Gath or a Sejuani in the late game and becoming absolutely untouchable. What's important to note here is the mid lane turret difference. Fnatic having it unlocked and RNG not gives Fnatic a lot of side lane pressure in the fact that they have access to the entire map. Trundle and Taliyah are both picks to try and get that side lane position, and it's going to be really difficult now for RNG to actually force fights on Fnatic, as Fnatic can just consistently keep these side lanes pushed in.
Fnatic love to play the 3-1-1 style, where you have your AD carry supporting jungler on one side of the map, you have your mid laner just sitting in mid lane, and of course you have then a top laner with teleport on the opposite side. So when they have this Taliyah, and why again I think it's such a perfect pick for them, Caps is able to always defend mid. He can wave clear so quickly, and then he can leave. He walks out of mid lane, and RNG have to call careful. He might go top, he might go bot lane, and it applies so much pressure.
Yeah, and we have actually seen RNG in similar positions like this in the group stage. They made some heroics happen and come back from it. Samsung versus RNG, the final game in the group stage, was somewhat similar to this, where they made very decisive teamfight calls and won. That makes us feel like RNG is super good at this and it's super safe, but it's not. If one of those team fights go wrong, Fnatic will win this game.
Well, we'll find out if it does. Xiaohu's got that Archangel, Mr. Mask completed. Fnatic now being pressured. They're going to lose this tower if they can't clear the way quickly. Uzi's hammering away with that explosive shot.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of teams hiding in that little brush here in the river. You just see at the top of your screen and hope someone face checks them, because it means you give over the entire mid lane to the enemy team. And RNG were like, we don't want to face check, we just walk straight down to your tower, and Fnatic needs to take a long route around to defend it. That was a lot of free damage in favor of RNG.
Okay, so even game as we're now past 20 minutes. We're moving this mid-game spike. There's a good front line for RNG. They've won, multiple team fights in the group stage to make it here as the #1 seed. Now we see how good Fnatic's team fighting is. Now we see how coordinated their map play is. We've broken down a lot of their tools, but for RNG, is this a wait for Fnatic to move, or can they force a team fight, something that they're extremely good at?
I mean, if they do want to force a fight, it's through MLXG. But there is the cleanse on Caps, which is very important here. There's Spell Shield on Reckless, and there's then 2 tanks he can also hit, because Jess is going to sit far back in these fights. So it's hard for him to actually start and engage. That's why Baron is the key objective for them, because when you start this Baron, you force Fnatic to come towards you, and then you can turn and get your 5-on-5 team fight.
Yeah, and the fact that Ming played Janna in 5 of 6 group stage games means RNG hasn't really proven to initiate well on those matchups. I think it puts them in a very difficult position. Really have to watch whether or not RNG can kill Jessis. He probably has to be the first one to die in any of these team fights, just based off the strength we have seen from Janna team fighting so far here at Worlds.
All right, Caps' strength there in that little kerfuffle in the mid lane, putting a lot of damage onto MLXG, forcing them away. RNG will take their second tower of the game. This one's uncontested by Fnatic. And I'm looking at the vision in that top quadrant of the minimap. Fnatic pushing into RNG's jungle.
And I'm looking at the inventory, and I'm seeing some potions still, and I'm seeing a cloth armor as well. We need to see some control wards from Fnatic's side if they actually want to take over the river near this Baron and deny all the vision away from RNG's side. At the moment, though, they have Source sitting on the top side, pushing in, which means no one is actually bot lane. They're looking for a fight here.
All right, Soaz is the one that's been caught a little bit. Subjugate for buys some time. Now Reckless zones away Uzi as Soaz buys so much time with that Subjugate. Fnatic have decided to come in. Broxah sends out the barrel. MNG forced to use the flash. Now Reckless continues to chunk down. The Pillar of Ice holds MLXG in place. Fnatic with 5-man stack. take down RNG's jungler, and what do they do next?
Well, they made it very clear they wanted to fight because they moved Source up there with the team, and there is no healing reduction just yet, so Source able to get all the HP back, even when he was tanking 2 members.
Yeah, it would be very risky to go for Baron, but it wouldn't actually be a defensible play if they wanted to try and go for another engage with Broxah still having Flash. Looks like they're okay with just the 1 kill.
The big one is the fact that Ming had to use Flash in the last fight. Just like you want to kill the Janna early, same thing for a Soraka in team fights. Gragas with Body Slam Flash onto Ming. It's an easy setup for Broxah if he can actually get close enough. And that is where we got to see if Ming is positioning correctly.
Yeah, and watching this one more time, Shogath is down in the bottom lane with teleport the whole time, but RNG doesn't want to use it and make the slow call to disengage. I think this is a little bit perplexing by MLXG that he doesn't flash early, knowing the imminent threat that was arriving from the jungle. Uzi had already disengaged, but once he doesn't flash, they go for him. Now Letme has arrived.
All right, Reckless just gets nommed down by Letme. Didn't even need that teleport. Soaz, however, did. He's teleported in. Caps, no flash. And all of a sudden, RNG are peeling back towards the river, peeling back towards Baron. Feral Scream silences up Soaz. Will delay the start of Subjugate. Not long enough, though. The heal, the armor, the MR keeps Soaz alive. Not much longer. Glacial Prison pops him down. Uzi gets that fight. RNG find the fight they needed.
Fnatic had absolutely no vision on the bottom side, so Letme, after pushing his lane, just snuck his way towards mid lane and surprised Reckless here. The silence prevented the flash.
And the question is, what do you do after getting a pick? Fnatic recalled, RNG goes straight to Baron. Broxah has a chance to steal it, they go for it.
It's got flash available as well as smite. The Gymnasium is on their feet, 1,000 HP. Broxah gets knocked away. Caps gets at least
really
1 kill on
low.
the way out. Baron secured. Flash howling
Uzi.
in from Jesus. Uzi's going low. The Baron he gets one. Manages to rocket jump away. MLXG's trying to channel. Flash forward from Broxah. Gets the Baron. She's not done. But here comes Reckless. Flashes over the wall. Trying to chase down Levy. Shahu's running for his life. He took down Caps on the back end. All of a sudden, it's a 2-on-1.
They're in a turn.
Captain Reckless and RNG kill Fnatic.
And suddenly RNG create the picks. They get the Baron here. Nice coordination, knocking Broxah away from that pit. No chance of a steal, and then they actually win the fight after.
RNG just keep executing, exerting their strength on their opponents, because macro-wise up until this point, Fnatic has been winning, but the vision gap happens, they go right for Reckless.
And Reckless right here does not use his flash, gets silenced, and his spell shield actually was not able to proc on anything because Letme was smart, he saved his abilities.
And then watching this, they all get bursted down, but they hit Broxah back to prevent the steal, and then this fight is insane. Uzi stands his ground, moves forward, kills Jesses, gets the reset, hits the plant. Everything feels like it's planned. Then he still has flash after all of this to finally get the execute, and then to just have the icing on the cake. Letme, the guy they have been funneling gold in the whole game, has just enough to turn this fight around.
And we have seen this before from the LPL teams. When their tank in the side lane gets to push out his lane, he roams mid, he goes mid lane. RNG did the exact same thing to G2, where they caught up Sven in the mid lane. Now they did it against Reckless and Fnatic. It turns the game completely upside down.
Oh, look at that gold graph. Back and forth, and just like that, RNG with Baron, a combined collection of kills is now 3,000 gold up, and they are in the driver's seat.
But this first game just sets us up for such a fun series when both teams are this back and forth here. Small mistakes suddenly gets punished, good outplays, and bam, your team might win the game.
But what RNG has been able to do is just continually win those team fights, and Xiaohu barely makes it up. Their team fight KDA is higher than anyone else at the World Championship. That was another fight that felt very arbitrary, very much like a 50-50, but they outplayed Fnatic in the moment, just like they've been doing all Worlds.
And Uzi made it look so good on the back end of the Baron fight. RNG sieging 3 lanes at once. Xiaohu escaped top, Soaz escaped mid as RNG threw everything at him. They're going to secure their 4th tower of the game, and just take a quick look at the itemization. RNG, 3 completed items pretty much across the board, starting to steamroll Fnatic.
Reckless will soon get his 3rd fully completed item as well to try and match Uzi here, but Fnatic needs to just try and stop the bleeding at the moment. They haven't lost an inhib turret just yet. We'll have to surrender another tier 2 tower.
And RNG was able to force a fight around Baron, because that's something that draws Fnatic away from comfort. But actually killing turrets against Taliyah, Sivir, and Janna, let alone turret diving against Janna, is a whole nother level of difficulty. So yes, RNG has that 5,000 gold lead, but this game could be far from over.
So important, though, that Let Me finds a way towards mid lane. No wards on the bottom side at all. And then he walks in and he just delays every ability. He's waiting for the spell shield from Reckless. And when it runs out, he silences. No chance of flashing the Rupture, then Reckless dies. Super smart play.
Yeah, it's so hard to play Cho'Gath, this very slow dinosaur-type champion against the best players, and actually land your Ruptures. But he's gotten 2 Ruptures onto a spell-shielding Sivir who gets extra move speed from the ultimate and from her auto attacks. So really cannot say enough how well Let Me played to make those fights happen, but also how well he's played this tournament. A lot of resources go to Uzi because he gets teamfight kills, but a lot of solo turrets and ganks from MLXG go towards Let Me because he knows how to use it too.
And it's very hard to be a successful teamfight AD carry if you don't have a strong front line in front of you.
Exactly.
And that's been a big part for RNG in this tournament, even WE as well, where we start seeing these big tanks from the jungle and the support, jungle and top lane, sorry, be able to execute the teamfights properly.
Yeah, and speaking of proper teamfight execution, this is now a Frozen Heart, Spirit Visage Trundle with Subjugate against a team that lacks healing reduction. Uzi's still yet to pick up that Executioner's Calling, so if Soaz can time the usage of a Gargoyle Stoneplate, his ultimate will be upwards of a 3,000 health heal on top of the resistances he steals.
Caveman versus dinosaurs happening on our screen.
Don't know why he ulted so early against Let Me. That ultimate is the tool for Soaz in teamfights.
Wanted to see the stats.
Yeah,
it's
how
a
much
test.
armor and MR do I get? Ooh, a lot.
It's a test, sending a message, just reminding him he has the power to do so. 30 minutes in, RNG, they've got themselves a 5,000 gold lead. It's 5 towers to 3. And the next dragon's going to be Elder. That's going to be up just shortly after 36 minutes. So RNG will just have another wheel, another cog that they can turn to force Fnatic to come face check. Maybe pull him away from that inhibitor turret, which is fairly easy to defend, as you've already said, Jax.
And no Executioner's Calling on Uzi is a big mistake. He opts for Lord Dominic's Regards in this game. Will not be able to reduce healing from Janna's ultimate, but the biggest one is their ability to kill Soaz. They cannot reduce the healing from the Trundle ultimate.
Yesterday, Huni's Trundle was unkillable, and it became pivotal as the game played out. Let's see if Soaz can do the same. As you mentioned, it's timing, it's placement, and it's whether or not the team plays well. That's
they got him!
Xiaohu! He will not use the Realm Warp to escape. It's a 50-second death timer, but it might just be a stall tactic.
Xiaohu's tried this a few times now to go top lane, but honestly, at this point, he needs to be with the team because there is so much mobility on Fnatic's side to just catch him in the side lane. They didn't have pressure in other lanes, and Xiaohu just ended up dying here, actually allowing Fnatic now to defend, but Reckless is still pushing out top lane, wants to maximize his own farm here, while the rest of Fnatic are just defending bot side.
All right, Let Me. Gonna get some support here from MLXG. Comes in with the Righteous Glory. Redemption's already thrown down. Caps uses the flash. That might be important for the upcoming Baron Siege. Uzi as well as Ming coming in from the side lane. MLXG now flashes defensively. So does Let Me. Rupture comes up. Wish is now blown. RNG continue to run away. Glacial Prism buys some time. Reckless trying to rejoin the fight. He's come from the bottom lane, but RNG, they managed to escape.
That was 4 versus 4 in the bottom lane at first. MLXG just wanted to force that flash from Caps, but then a quick turnaround. While Reckless was recalling, he was ready to fight, but he just wasn't there in time.
And RNG lost so much in that play. They lost flashes on both of their front lines and also ultimates almost across the board. Baron is up in 10 seconds right now. I thought maybe Fnatic would be playing around vision control after the pick onto Xiaohu. They do not, but they have burned some critical ultimates if they themselves want to start forcing around Baron.
And it's important now with these big fights here, when there are 2 tanks in the front from both teams, it's all about who can kill the front line first. If your team can't do that because there's a Trundle just healing everything, you gotta find the carries.
All right, gonna look for the carries now. Root down onto Soaz. He's silenced. He can't even get the Subjugate down. Here comes Let Me. The Righteous is gonna catch Broxah. And Monsoon's buying some time. The heals are huge, but Caps gets chunked down. RNG with less flashes, with less ultimates, they get the kill.
And just as we talk about RNG finding the carries because it's so hard to kill the tanks, they actually get the engage here onto Caps. Talia being down is so huge.
Insane. They lose Sejuani flash, ult, Cho'Gath flash, ult for 1 flash, and you think, man, that trade's never going to be worth it. But then they kill the dude whose flash was down and win this team fight hands down so they can get themselves the second Baron of the game.
And it's another time where it's the jungler or the top laner from RNG starting the fight here, getting the correct engage onto Fnatic. Makes everything easier for RNG's carries when it comes to finding the correct target.
What does this mean for Fnatic now? They've got to defend against Baron-empowered minions on multiple lanes. Yes, there's always that Sivir 6-item 700 CS win condition, but it feels so much more monumental against this RNG squad who are just such on a great page here at Worlds.
One minor thing, Reckless finally completed the last Whisper, which will help substantially in dealing with Let Me and MLXG. We'll see if that has a difference in this fight.
And it might be their 500 CS win condition on Fnatic side. There is the 500 CS win condition of Uzi on RNG side here. And we know in these team fights here, he's able to carry.
He's already proven it at the Baron. Uzi, though, ignoring the Fnatic champions as best as he can. Roxa trying to threaten some sort of engagement. Look at the inhibitor turrets. They are being chipped away and chunked down. RNG, the ebb and the flow, moving forward, flashless. Rune Prison buys some time. Let Me is getting chunked down, but he's still got 1200 HP. He's used everything. Let Me gets killed by Caps. Fnatic have bought some time against the Baron. Empowered will never give up. Caps jumps up a little bit early. He gets dropped, chunked, and killed by RNG. Soaz continues to chase forward, but he's got no support. He's got no damage to back him up, and the Weaver's Wall, I think, even locked Fnatic out of the chase.
And Caps trying to make a huge play to cut him off in the jungle, goes face first into an 80 carry, and the advantage they thought they had by picking Let Me is gone. Turret still goes down for RNG, and they end up trading kills in the fight.
We've seen this quite a lot today here. Fnatic gets one kill, and then RNG gets a kill in return, or the other way around. Both teams are still trading a lot in these big team fights here, but Uzi, he wants that tower.
And the difference has always been what happens after the fight. RNG getting objective after objective. In the 1-for-1, they get 2 turrets and an inhibitor.
Teleport's available for Soaz, but he's left the base trying to defend. Pillar comes down, insta-rocket jump from Uzi. And at the end of the second minute of Baron,
going straight for Elder.
RNG, they grab themselves the inhibitor. They start off the Elder. Quite frankly, Fnatic are too far to contest.
Again, this is what we see from RNG during this tournament here. They have a lot of control on the map. It's a lot about objectives, about vision, denying vision from the enemy team. It's not just forced team fights left and right 24/7. There is a lot of reason behind the things they're doing. This engage here from Fnatic is actually okay. It's like, we can't defend topside. Let's just get a kill and push this Baron team away from our base.
Yep. They get the start on Let Me, and now the front line is removed, so they think, okay, let's collapse. Caps goes straight for Uzi, and he's like, wait, maybe I shouldn't have done that so quickly. If he waited maybe another 4 seconds and could have arrived with Soaz, there's a chance that works. Far too ambitious at the moment.
That means he gets dunked down. Jack, look at the damage difference from that previous fight. Uzi, of course, starting to take off. And RNG, they've now got, I mean, they've had control for a fairly lengthy period of time in this mid to late game. And with Super's middle and an exposed inhibitor top, there is literally no room for error for Fnatic. They've got some teamfight power, but they cannot afford to keep making these mistakes.
Oh, and right now Caps is only sitting on 3.5 items as well, because he's not getting the farm. It's Reckless, of course, grabbing these big waves for himself. So the Sivir is very soon on 4 items. Caps still need quite some time. That was a big hit.
Soraka all being used by Ming is pretty huge right there. They thought it was going to be an all-out Fnatic initiation. One minor thing that really does empower these RNG seeds is they have double Ocean Drake with a Soraka. So if any of their frontline get low but do not die, Soraka heals them up, Ocean Drake heals Soraka up, and then everything is absolutely fine after about 20 seconds. So it makes it even more critical that Fnatic find the definitive initiation where they're getting the last hits on champions.
And it doesn't look like Fnatic are going to have some options here. Look at this, RNG, 4-man stack down bottom, Xiaohu with his Hourglass and Realm Warp. He takes down the inhibitor uncontested. Now he's got the ability to escape the Rise combo that has been popularized here at Worlds. And he's not even going to get chased because no one else from Fnatic can chase him.
And he's the man with the Elder Drake buff. He doesn't need to run away from Source. He can easily turn around and kill him. Fnatic once again trying something.
All right, seismic shove comes down. Let Me as well as Uzi get caught by that pillar of ice. Not really a lot of follow-up. The Equinox from Ming zoning away, and RNG have just got so much disruption in team fights between the Soraka, the Sejuani, and that Cho'Gath. Fnatic cannot find their way in.
Yeah, and now no Sivir ult if they want to go for more. Broxa has his ultimate up in about 15 seconds. That will probably be the next time they would try for something. It's going to be very difficult to hold this next wave of minions, though, because RNG has Rise in the base to hold flank position and super minions crashing from the top side.
A huge minion wave coming down. Fnatic on the verge of losing the first game here in this best of 5. The early game looked so good, but it started to fall apart when the RNG team fighting machine started to steamroll to 10,000 gold lead. Silence comes down onto Caps. He can't get any of those volleys threaded through the RNG lineup. Xiaohu, there's the combo. Round warp into Hourglass. It just buys time. That's all Fnatic had. Caps almost gets insta-give, and he does. Flash forward feast from Let Me. Now it's a 5v4, an RNG chase all the way in. Good damage onto MLXG. Not going to be enough to stop him, though. Reckless continues to try to put the ricochet across, and Guangzhou, China, erupts in RNG chance. The third inhibitor falls, and RNG might be setting sights on the Nexus.
Again, they're in full control. They're just waiting for some super minions coming into the base here. Caps step for another 30 seconds. Uzi with the damage on Tristana to take down these turrets very quickly.
And no Caps in this fight, still down for 26 seconds. Unless RNG fully dies, they're gonna win the game.
Oh, they are indeed. Broxah, the buster shot, ends up saving his life. Jez is forced to flash defensively. Soaz puts down the Pillar of Ice. MLXG is getting chunked up by Reckless, but 2 shots from Uzi. Drops 50% of his HP. The Nexus turret is going low, and RNG cannot get through the wave clear.
The Sivir wave clear is insane. The unlimited ricochet, as long as it is in range to jump to a new target, means Reckless is the one guy who can clear 3 waves of super minions. Any other champion, except maybe Azir, when 3 inhibs are down, means it's over. Not against Sivir, though.
See this fight again here. Xiaohu, of course, using the defensive ult, and then it's a big crit onto Caps, and Let Me seize an opening to just flash in and eat him.
Yeah, the second moment in the last 10 minutes where Caps has gone overly ambitious in trying to defend. They could have sat back, ricocheted the wave, moved Reckless, continued that defensive pattern, but Caps went for the big play, missed, and paid the price.
That last fight here, Uzi actually valued trying to kill Broxah and then finish the game instead of just taking down whatever turrets he could in front of him. He knows there's still so many super minions coming into his base. There's another Baron now being picked up by RNG.
And gentlemen, this is truly the EU meta. ZZ Rot Portal in the bottom lane for defense. A Sivir farming under 3 inhibitor win condition. I feel like I see in EU LCS more than many other regions. And let's see if Fnatic can pull a rabbit out the hat, because truthfully, they need a miracle. They need some mistakes from RNG, or that massive play, the seismic shove that shuts down Xiaohu or Uzi. If one of those damage dealers go down, somehow, that's how Fnatic can at least push this base wave out.
And the initiation is so hard for both teams to actually get that clean team fight, which is why we've seen most kills be either baits or missed positions. Fnatic has tremendous wave clear. It's really going to be put to the test here, though. 2 waves of super minions and the team positioning in the mid lane. That's a double stack on the bottom side. They're going for the initiation right now. All
right, let's see if any kills can come down. Let Me, the Wish will buy some time. Monsoon gets a full channel from Jez's. He throws down the feast onto Broxah. Xiaohu's been able to re-engage. Broxah looks for the body slam onto Let Me, but here comes
so much healing.
The seismic shove out from Let Me. All these supports, all these heals, all the help for days. The inhibitor is the focus as Uzi turns his attention to the structure, and RNG once again get the inhib.
So Arca here making sure that the Cho'Gath just cannot die in these fights, and suddenly it's RNG turning it around.
Actually a raid boss, now back at full health because you didn't complete that part to finish him
and
off.
there's a healer healing the boss again.
Oh, how do Fnatic stop this? Howling Gale buys just a few seconds. Baron, empowered minions, comes down. The Nexus turret is caught. Uzi forced to flash, manages to escape with his life. Barrier still available, 1 Nexus turret remaining. Sejuani engages but doesn't find the CC yet. Jesus is slow, Reckless, spamming the minion waves. He's trying to clear it out. The Nexus turret is the focus, but still survives. 200 hit points.
RNG just needs to hit the tower, kill the tower here, so the Nexus is open, but they're so afraid of Fnatic.
Yeah, track the flashes. Almost all of them are down right now. It means the next time if Uzi does get hit by a seismic shove, QSS flash is not available, but they're just waiting on the minions. The inhibitor's back up. They will have 3 waves shortly. The double ocean drakes as well doing work.
Got the minions now. We have Uzi moving down as well. Let Me towards the turret. Uzi needs a few hits on it. There's one.
Not going to get it just yet. The tower still stands. The minion wave is being cleared out. It's a last hit there from Xiaohu. The Nexus is the focus. On the hunt is used by Fnatic. Can they defend the base? Can they do it again? They're trying to push. Royal, never give up away. Here comes the Baron empowered minions. Broxah is stunned up. MLXG is going low, but Lepme's looking for a target. Monsoon resets the fight. Everybody's healed up. Broxah is pushed away with the buster shot. Where is Reckless? He can't get the damage down yet.
No, the
Nexus going out. Spellstill buys some time. RNG looking for the kills. Turn the attention to the Nexus. They're looking to kill the Nexus. And Royal never give up. Win game 1.
And the final push over the last 2 minutes showed 0 champion casualties. And I think that is indicative of the way RNG has actually been winning these games. They focus on the turrets. They do just enough to get that small advantage, and then they take it home. RNG up 1-0.
And we talk a lot about the team fighting, but this game here went in favor of RNG when led me on the Cho'Gath, moved to the mid lane, caught out Reckless, and then straight towards the Baron. That was the first big objective secured, where RNG really started getting a big gold lead.
And that last fight, as you guys mentioned, all of the healers, all of the tanks, Reckless, just a quick stat, dealt over 15,000 damage to champions inside his base during the course of that siege.
And got 0 kills.
And 0 kills. It was not enough. But what an exciting start to the series. The early game for Fnatic was good. The team fighting strength for RNG was good.
Yes.
The expectations playing out as we expected.
I mean, kind of, yeah. There are, of course, things both teams can look at. Like, Fnatic need to invest way more into their own vision.
Yep.
Like, there are multiple times where they have 1 or 2 control wards on the map, even when they're actually ahead and trying to pressure down RNG. And that suddenly you have these openings where you don't see anything, and you might get surprised. But again, great team fighting. And Soraka in the late game, Janna in the late game, they're both so valuable, and we got to see that in these fights.
It really did. And heartbreaking loss for Fnatic in their base, but RNG, they showed up. So to get their thoughts on how game 1 played out, let's send it to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much. Quick shot. Game 1 goes to RNG, to the cheers of thousands of fans here in the arena. But Crumbs, top of the day, we were celebrating the removal of the Jannas, the Lulus, the Ardent Sensor supports, and then Fnatic and RNG, they drag us right back down into it.
They had to chaperone the party, bring it back, Ardent Sensors, and with Soraka, but the Soraka at least is an answer to the Janna, right? You have the healing power, which is one of the weaknesses of Janna. She typically in lane can't really withstand that, and she does open herself up to be punished by ganks, which was what happened.
I mean, typically we see the red side team having to respond to the Lulu ban with the Janna ban. RNG opting to leave it up says that this was a planned strategy. Go ahead and take the Janna. We have the answer to it.
Yeah, the trap card was laid there, and we even saw Aframu getting a bit vocal on Twitter. He's like, finally, someone has recognized that Soraka does very well into Janna. The problem is that paired with Tristana, like you said, they're going to be pushed. They need to be taking aggressive trades, so they're going to be forward and expose themselves in that lane, and that led Broxah to be very active.
That's exactly what you were talking about at the top of the day, Azale. The importance of Broxah in the early game if Fnatic's going to get anything done.
And I think he actually had a fantastic early game. You know, it started in the mid lane, forcing out summoners there. Then I think he handles this gank so incredibly well. Not even expending his flash, holding his body slam until after Soraka uses her flash, and he can hit both. So this really was a fantastic gank. And again, getting back down to the bot side, continuing to press this advantage, attack the Soraka, whose weakness really is in these sorts of chaotic all-in fights.
So I think Fnatic had a good early game, but just not good enough. With the composition that they have, I feel like they are pigeonholing themselves in a position where they have to be so incredibly active. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for them to handle RNG into the late game. We saw in the later fights, they were just unable to kill anybody from either side. You got the Soraka, such a nightmare to deal with. The wave clear was really all that saved them, and it just doesn't seem like the style or the champion for Broxah to go with Gragas and expect him to bring enough to the early game to surpass the RNG comp.
I kind of disagree. Like, I see what you're saying, but in this case, I actually felt like he did get enough done in the early game. I think that their failure was much more around vision, was much more around the mistakes getting picked off. Both times that led to the Baron was, you know, Cho'Gath running out with Righteous Glory the first time, killing Reckless. Second time is a TP from behind. And I feel like if you don't have those major mistakes, if you don't give over, you know, multiple Barons, the Elder Dragon as well, you can actually hold in your base. And I just felt like they were playing from too far behind. Because
I get a response from
So
Crumbs
I also
and then
think
Frost.
that the aggression was good, but they gave way too much, especially top side. Had they not lost that top turret of the roam from SOAS and then the teleport, I think it would have been fine. But committing so much without defending yourself for what RNG can do was, I think, their undoing.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I just wanted to piggyback on. It's about where you're finding those sacrifices. If you're all going bottom, it was Soaz, unfortunately, who suffered. And he also put himself in a situation to constantly try to put caps ahead. It wasn't just the bottom lane. I think there were 3 to 4 ganks where finally Fnatic found where the mid lane was on the map, tried to unlock that Talia early and allow him to then roam around and use the wall effectively.
And I think you guys make a good point, you know, if you're talking about the trades in the top lane versus that. But to me, that was less about what Broxah was doing and more about the fact that, you know, the TP from Trundle came mid lane, got nothing out of that. That led to the first turret going down. So I still think that Broxah had a very strong early game.
I mean, at the end of the day, you talked about these two teams stylistically being team-fighting teams, that's ultimately where we're going to see the matchup swing one way or the other. Well, we got our team fight in the mid-game at 25 minutes. Mid lane, RNG coming out on top. 2 2-0 and a Baron, brought to you by Acer Predator.
And Deficio talked about how it was the pockets of fog of war, you know, that vision going dark that allowed this to even happen, that RNG ran out of the darkness, found Fnatic with their pants down, and it is just about these big 5v5s. And this is my trepidation about RNG. Yes, they look very impressive, and when people look at this game one, look at that goal difference, they're like, wow, RNG just smashed Fnatic. But the early game was controlled by Fnatic almost entirely. And if RNG don't get these team fights, they do not win this game.
Yeah, I certainly agree, and that's why, you know, I was talking about Vision as well. Deficio was mentioning it. I was super disappointed when you actually looked at the inventories. About 30 minutes into the game, we have Broxa sitting on a cloth armor with no pink wards. We have Reckless sitting on a Doran shield, no pink wards. We have Caps sitting on a Doran's ring, no pink wards. And he talked about, oh, well, there's only 1 or 2 pink wards out on the map. That's because no one else could even pick them up because they have this crap in their inventory that is actually not allowing you to get the pink wards, which are so integral to controlling Vision and denying those team fights. As you're talking about, Frost, you can't give this over to RNG and expect to be able to win.
I mean, that fog of war is basically so much that you're in Silent Hill at this point. You got to walk in, and who do you have that can actually go in there? You got Reckless that has to flash over. He actually had vision of that play, by the way. He knew where Ryze was and chooses to spell shield.
And isn't that just telling, though? The looks on both of those faces, right? We talked about emotionally driven players, emotionally driven teams. Yes, Fnatic was the one to run it back in week 2, but the fact that they were even in that position to begin with says something about the importance of game 1 in a best-of-5 series between these two squads specifically.
And I have no doubt that the momentum is going to be great for RNG, but I don't think the defeat is going to stumble at Fnatic. You take a step back from that game, and it's very clear to be like, okay, we got cut out at this one point. Don't do that. We had a great early game. Broxa was playing well, Caps was getting resources, and Reckless got first blood. So I think it's very easy for Fnatic to just shake this one off.
I do think they can shake it off, but I feel like the fundamentals in Vision and the communication was just so lacking that, sure, they might not be tilted, but I find it difficult to see a team in the best of 5 change so very basic of ideas and just apply it to game 2 and the upcoming ones.
Well, game 1 goes in favor of